Welcome to Construction Champions Podcast, where we are burning the house down and rebuilding it twice a week. I'm your host, Ron Nussbaum, and I am here to help you become the champion that you're meant to be. Along with our amazing guests along the way, we will provide you with the resources, the latest and greatest. You will sit down with disruptors in the construction industry. And my goal from day one has always been to change the mindset around the construction industry. No more where we let the 3% of bad apes dictate the entire reputation of our industry. Welcome back, Construction Champions, to another amazing episode. I'm your conversation facilitator, United States Marine Corps veteran, and founder of BuilderComms, Ron Nussbaum. See, that's a mouthful. Once again, it's starting to get too long. We're going to have to narrow that down. We'll probably just stick with conversation facilitator going forward. But what we're here for is to help you become the champion that you're meant to be. And we just don't do it by Ron Nussbaum coming on here and rambling for 30, 40 minutes. We bring on experts from in and around and even outside the construction industry to have conversations on how you can be better at business, life, relationships, dealing with employees, sales, you name it. We talk about it on here with one goal in mind, is that you take one bit of this information, become part of the 1% that actually do something, and start to become the construction champion that we know you're meant to be. And today is no different. We have an amazing guest. I am super excited for this conversation today. Jonathan, it is fantastic to have you here today.
Thank you, Ron, and I'm looking forward to our conversation, our little time before we got started, already getting to enjoy knowing you.
Awesome, man. Well, before we dive into it, why don't you introduce yourself to all the construction champions listening out there?
Yeah, thank you. I'm best known as the Sales Boss. It's after a book that I wrote years ago, published by Wiley, The Sales Boss. It's all around building high performance sales teams, and built and sold a couple of companies early on. My first company was a cleaning company, so I know what it's like to do that's probably the blue collar of the blue collar work. But one of the things that is true in every business is, what my grandfather used to say, business would be easy if it wasn't for the people. And so I learned really early on that if you're going to have a successful business, it's really about focusing on the people part of the business. So in my journey from writing The Sales Boss, and now I have a technology company that helps people hire great people, but just spending time in that realm of how do we connect humans to meaningful work. And then for employers, your construction company owners, how do you make that magical for them? So it's not the hard part of the business, but it actually becomes something that they enjoy doing.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm excited for our conversation today. We've swam in some of the same waters. I acquired and sold a cleaning company at one portion of my stat around all of this. Just dabbled in that room.
I grew up really poor, so if I was going to pay for anything in my life, I was going to have to earn it myself. So I just thought, what's the company I could start? And the entry level for cleaning companies was pretty small. But I really quickly figured out I hated cleaning. I was no good at it, but I could sell. And if you could sell, you could do just about anything. And so I moved on really quickly, sold that company, and then got into the technology space.
Yeah, it's one thing about it is it's a very saturated market, but very, very few can sell and have a business in that industry. It's if you put something together, you can really dominate in that space because we think the barrier to entry in construction's low. The barrier to entry into cleaning is very low, and you can easily have competitive advantages. And
well, at least in construction, there's licenses and standards. Now, some I know ignore both of those things, but there's usually more of a consequence if you're in construction and you ignore those.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I'm gonna ask you the $1 million question, and that is, what makes a construction champion?
Yeah, it's a great question. I know you asked that on all your episodes. I think a construction champion is someone who recognizes that they are not in the construction business. That leader realizes that they are in the human business. They're in the business of inspiring humans, finding humans, training humans, and improving the quality of life for the people that come to work with them. Because when they're able to accomplish that and they build a really strong unit, one, it drives revenue in their organization, everything gets easier. But when you have a strong revenue inside of an organization, it allows you to do almost everything else, right? And so stronger humans create stronger family units, create stronger communities, creates stronger country. And so that's it. A construction champion is somebody who really realizes that they're just not, hammering nails and putting up buildings or whatever phase of construction they're in. They're building humans.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. And the companies that figure this out, you never hear them say, I call it a lie that the industry is that we have a people problem. A lot of times the company has a problem, because when you figure out what you're talking about, that people problem goes away. You start to have an abundance of people wanting to work for you, because you're building people, you're building a company. And the only way that company builds is if you build the people within it to go where you want it to go.
Yeah, that's exactly true. You hear people when they talk about their business, they say people don't want to work anymore. And I actually don't think that's true. The truth is people don't want to work for you. And if that's the situation you find yourself in, if you're listening to this podcast and you say, hey, I'm struggling to find people, it's hard for me to keep people, this is not anything to do with the economy. It's not anything to do with the fact that there's not quality people out there. It has to do with that you have not crafted a strong enough image in your community to draw the right kinds of people to you. And you don't have the ability then to, when you get those people, to inspire them to greatness. In my book, I say that people will continue to work for you for as long as they believe they can do the best work of their life still working for you. The minute that's not true, they're going to go on autopilot. They're going to be susceptible to a few dollar an hour increase or whatever life's pressure brings them. And yes, for sure, in different industries, labor markets are tighter. It is harder to find people. But if you could have 100% of the tradespeople in your particular trade work for you in your area, you probably couldn't have a big enough company, right, to put them all to work. So it isn't that there's not people, it's that those people that are available, you're not attractive to them. And that's the work to be done. If you're sitting in that owner of a construction company, or a leader in that company, how do you make your company more attractive than everyone else? And I'll sit down with owners all the time and I'll say, hey, why would somebody choose to work for you? And the laundry list is almost the exact same thing. So it doesn't stand out at all. Well, pay and flexibility and like those base level things, if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and maybe that's going too deep, right? But it's like the needs of people, like pay is way down at the bottom. Like that's just a given. And if that's what you're leading with, you're going to lose every time. You really have to go up towards the top of that pyramid, which is self-actualization. How do they think about themselves? Where are they going in life? What's their mission? What's their purpose? And the best companies, you think about, like, let's just think about car companies. How many CEOs of car companies can you name?
Off the top of my head, one.
I bet you was, yeah, right? Only one. Even though he's not the biggest car company, right? But immediately you know what he stands for. You might love it, you might hate it. That's irrelevant. We're operating in an environment where I believe times have changed. People want to work for organizations whose founder and owners have a mission. They stand for something. They're not just another company. And you should really lean into that, because as soon as you can lean into that, people will come to work for you.
I love that. I think, for one, I want to know the data on how many times you ask that question and get the exact same answer that I gave.
Yeah, I'll give you the data. I ask it hundreds of times and I've never gotten another answer other than Elon Musk. Even when I'm on a podcast in the automotive industry, where you think they would at least know, GM or some of the other company owners.
Yeah, I tried to think of who is the CEO of Ford or GM right now, and I just drew a blank. And the way I think of Tesla, Elon Musk, it's definitely he's done a branding job on that. Like you said, whether you like him, hate him, love him, whatever, like the dude is a master of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, talk about closely connected to the construction industry. I don't know. Some of your people who listen to this podcast might know Tommy Mello. He runs A1 Garage, right? Garage doors. $1 billion valuation out of a company that, he started with $10,000 or $50,000 in debt, just buying a truck and a phone number off Craigslist. But when people in his local communities where he operates hear his name, he is a draw for talent. He can hire hundreds of technicians a month and get them up and trained. And the reason is he's created a really strong brand about what does he stand for, the quality of life that he's trying to give to the people that work for him. So, if you think about a recruiting pipeline, people will climb a 30-foot fence to come to work for him. They'll line up around the block like you would at an Apple store when they're releasing a new iPhone. And yet you get another garage door company, maybe even in the same city, and you can't hardly get them to fill out an application. It's not the people, it's the owner. It's the reputation they've given their company. So I talk a lot about what I call the think, feel, act audit. And as a leadership team, you need to sit down and say, what do I want the people who come to work for me or are thinking about working for me to think when they see me, when they hear my company name? And how do I want them to feel as a result of that thought? Because everything we do is we have a thought, makes us feel a certain way, we take an action. Somebody else runs into us, they see our action, it causes them to think a certain way, feel a certain. All of a sudden, you get this really virtuous loop of activity going. So when I ask that, with business owners, a lot of them say, well, I want people to think that I can build champions or that they can trust me with their future or that I'm family oriented. So once you get that list together of what do you want people to think, I challenge a business owner, just go out in your parking lot, stand and look at your building. If they had to judge you 100% on that, would they think that you're capable of building champions, that they can trust you with their future? Go sit inside one of your trucks. Walk inside, sit in your restrooms, like really sit in them. We start walking past the same things. It just becomes ordinary every single day, right? We walk through our business space. Now extend that out into to your interactions with them. What does the first email feel like? What does the phone call feel like? Like we really, when we think about how we want our customers to view us, we spend a lot of time about that. We obsess about that. And yet when we think about our biggest customer, our employees, the humans that are going to come work for us, we give almost no thought to it. So I call that the think, feel, act audit. And if you just come up with your list of what do I want people to think and why, what do I want them to feel, and then literally just audit your building. So I'll give you an example of one construction company. They're right in California. You got the prime highway front access, metal building, not unlike a lot of construction companies. But on the outside of the building, a massive vinyl sign that says, "We're hiring." Right now, hiring, and it's weathered, it's faded, sort of torn. It looks like they've been hiring for the last 20 years. Right? So when they say we want people that, will think that we can build champions, they can trust us with the future, like just looking at that sign doesn't do anything. You walk up there's sort of a handicapped style ramp going up to their front door. It's, pockmarked, chipped concrete. The handrail is sort of rusty and the front glass is just dirty and the words sort of slightly peeling off it. Nothing yet feels like they can build champions. And when you walk up there and you try the door the first time, it's locked. And you got to ring a bell and wait for somebody to come let you in. I'm sure it's practical, right? Probably safety reasons, but they're looking at it through that lens, not the lens of somebody they're trying to attract. So after we did that exercise with them, super simple fix. Now, when you drive past their building, There's 3 pictures, life-size pictures of Ron, me, employees. And it says, when he started, he was a waiter earning $25,000 a year. He now makes 6 figures as our construction manager. 3 stories. And below it, we build champions. Apply within. Do you think they get a different caliber of person showing up? Right?
100%.
Now the walkway going up is now smooth, and it's painted red like a red carpet. And along the way, there's footprints in it and words that say, only champions tread here. On their front door is enter if you're a champion. What do you think the quality of the person coming in the front door? Do you think that changes the desire somebody has to work for you than the other construction company they just stopped at? Like people have choices, and you're competing in that marketplace. So it's a think, feel, act audit.
Yeah, and I think that person walking in there, there's a mindset shift that happens with them on, oh, I better be bringing my A game in here. It's no longer just what it was like the 20 years. Like that's what everybody probably thinks when they drove by, when that banner was out there. Now they look like a professional organization.
Yeah. And how much do you think it costs them to do that? A couple of grand.
Yeah. In the complete shift in they're still hiring, but what it looks like they're just building people.
Yeah. They probably spent more on Indeed ads to attract people than it costs them in 1 month just to redo the outside of their building. And it's prime highway traffic. Vinyl sign that says now hiring, that it's just a sea of sameness. I guarantee you thousands of cars going by, nobody saw that sign. And if they did, it didn't register.
Yeah. So once we get them in there, they want to be a champion. They are a champion, and we get them into the business. How do we fulfill these promises to them that we've sold them on, that we're going to build them into this champion and develop them? How do we then do that?
Yeah. Well, that's the $1 million question there, right? And that comes down to developing ourselves as leaders and living authentically. People want to work for authentic organizations. So we do a ton of work in that area. Primarily where I spend my time these days is in a platform called WhoHire. It's a technology for the trades specifically. And it does, here is a truth about humans. You have to cast a wider and wider net to find a handful of really good people. In fact, our data suggests that you have to talk to or interact with about 160 people to hire one person that will end up at the top 5% of your company in terms of performance. So we've developed a platform that when your candidates are coming in and applying, our system handles automatically about 70% of just what I call the mind-numbingly dull work of recruiting, texting, scheduling. But our system automatically starts texting with the candidate in a very human way. It's telling your story. It's drawing people in. But at the center of that, we've built prediction models. So for every role within the trades, we're able to predict how is somebody likely to do in this particular role and how long are they likely to stay. And we feel like when you give a leadership team that sort of data, rather than relying on gut and intuition, that they're naturally then going to have better retention. And we know when somebody stays with you longer, isn't it true they serve your customer better? You have fewer recalls, fewer redos, fewer missed appointments, all of the sort of things that are, problematic for a business owner.
This is what I love about technology in this space right now, is because we didn't have a ton of technology in the hiring process when I was doing all of that stuff. But there was one thing that I have in common with all I was trying to do in what technology does, is I was trying to remove the human element, the gut instinct out of our hiring process. Because that is what will cause it to fail. This needs, and I don't want to sound harsh about it, but this needs to be a data-driven decision. How I feel, because I'll be honest, this is how it all came about. Is I was running the production side of things, and I was doing the interviewing. And what I realized was the people I really like, the people I feel like are rock stars at this job, end up being our highest risk and the biggest pain in the butt. They're absolutely rock stars at the job, but they're not fits for us as a company. And I was like, I am the problem. I'm the roadblock. Like, we need to remove what I feel out of this. So I was like, somebody else to do all the interview. I would not hire another guy that goes and does our installs because I'm bad. Not that I'm bad at it, is I'm too emotional and I have too much of a gut instinct for what would make a great guy in the field, but not necessarily a great guy in our company. And that was really hard to do throughout the entire organization. We finally figured it all out. But like having some software in there to take that element out that's what I love about what's happening with technology in the hiring space right now.
Yeah. I think if people are still hiring like they would have in 2024, they're already getting further and further behind.
Really?
Think about how fast, like a year ago, nobody was using ChatGPT. Think of the things we're doing now that just a year ago you weren't doing, right? Hiring has changed exactly the same way. And yet, for many companies, especially I would say in the blue collar trades, they're still having some, late 20s, early 30s person manually looking at resumes and deciding who to call. And this is a person that's probably never done the job. And that's their very first filter to say, who am I going to let into my company? Imagine a world where when the resume comes in, we're comparing that automatically to thousands and thousands of people whose performance we already know. And we're saying, these are the ones that you should be talking to. That's the power of data nowadays. Like, I don't know why you would set a human in that spot to do that. Now, hiring is a very human thing. You do have to be able to tell your story. You have to be able to draw people in, but you don't have to do that on the front end, right? Have some of that sifting happening, have some of, and by the way, there's technology that feels very human. Like it used to be, you could only have really static text messages, right? Like, and you could always tell when it was like a templated email you were getting. But now with AI, you can write a very personal text message or email to somebody that mentions them by name, mentions something you saw on their resume, and invites them to come in for an interview. And that can be completely automated based on your standards.
So I want to ask you, if you can't answer this, it's fine. But I know we probably have listeners saying, like, we get all these resumes. How do we know, like, how is AI looking at the resumes and making the right decisions on?
Yeah. So, well, here, that's a great question. One, I would treat resumes as a complete work of fiction, right? Like, there's probably an AI writing the resume 90%.
Yeah, probably.
Now we'll have AI scanning. So one, we just sort of treat resumes as a work of fiction. What you can do really effectively with AI, though, is categorization. You can say, based on their resume, this is how many years they claimed of relevant experience. So we can do that. We take a slightly different approach, which we're more interested in what is the core DNA of a person. So as an example, when we built a model for an HVAC technician, I'm just going to pick a random job. We literally assessed against 400 psychographics, thousands of HVAC technicians who were doing the job. So we got this really rich psychographic picture of who are the humans that take this job. And then on the other end, we got a psychographic picture, but we actually got their actual performance data. So we're able to feed that into a machine learning model, which is just a fancy term for, sifting and sorting data, to say, which of these 450 things actually matter for somebody that's going to stay around as an HVAC technician. So we've done the hard work for all of those roles within construction, so that when somebody's coming in, we don't really care about their resume on the front end. Yes, we're filtering it and doing all that, but that alone is not going to tell you anything. But we're able to say, this is the sort of human that intrinsically, with the right opportunity, with the right training, does well. Now it matters if I look at their training to say, yep, and they actually have the skills, right? So it's sort of a combination of AI and data analytics at that scale. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does, because you're taking it once. It answers the question very good, because like the question is like with AI looking at this stuff, but you're taking it one step farther. Is that we're using AI to pull the data out of there we need to then put it against the data that we have collected.
That's it. You got that. And there's a lot of things you can do with AI that just are what I call low level admin sort of tasks. So as an example, you could apply and I could send you a static text message, right? That says Ron, or just says first name, like Ron, thanks for applying. Click here to schedule. Or I could send you a AI created video that looks like me that says, hey, Ron, I got your application. I noticed you have experience working for XYZ company. That might be interesting for us. We've got a lot of applicants for this. Could you just record, if you're interested in this role, record two videos on your iPhone answering these 2 questions. It feels very human, right? And we do that with AI. And then you just record a couple things. Here's what I'm looking for. Now, rather than having a bunch of no-shows who in 5 minutes you wouldn't ever give this job to, you can screen 30, 40 candidates, just click, 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 click. And then based on that click, invite them in for whatever the next stage in your process is. So it's about that. Those are very practical, what I call just admin kind of tasks that AI can handle way better than putting a human in that seat. I was speaking at a conference the other day and somebody came up who's my customer. I don't actually know them, but they said, you save me 20 hours a week of interview time that I used to have every week. Before even the accuracy improvements, they're like, just on the $23 an hour I paid that person to do interviews, you've saved me 45 grand this year. And the quality's better. So I think those are the sort of things that we're not trying to remove humans from the hiring funnel. What we're trying to do is say, let's spend the human time actually speaking to humans who we know are going to have a high probability of success. I was on a call this morning. It was actually for a roofing company, and they have door-to-door salespeople and all the other sort of things. And so recruiting's always their game, right? And they said now through our system, they're getting 9 candidates to come in, and 7 of them are people they would hire. That's a pretty high success rate, right? And the first time they're talking to them is in that interview when they're interviewing those, and they're actually interviewing those 9 people in a group interview, and they're hiring 7 of them. Just taking that drag out of the system is going to really allow them to scale quickly.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head with we're not trying to like use AI to whatever. Like we're using AI to make the people we have better and to bring in better people. Like that is my thesis around AI is if you're not using it, you're wrong. And if you're using it to try to just do whatever stuff, that's all fine and dandy. But the moment you start to use AI to make you more effective, to make your team more effective, to change the actual results of what's happening, that is when you actually start to leverage it. And that's what you're talking about doing here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great age that we're in. It just requires owners to be aware of what's possible and make sure that they're not, and we tend to think, oh, I did it this way last year. It's still relevant. Literally, if you hire in 2026, like you hired in 2024, guaranteed you're so far behind.
Yeah.
You're spending more money. You're having more anxiety. You're having more challenges than you need to have. There's an easy button for it.
Yeah. On that note, we're getting ready to head into 2026 here as we're wrapping up December. What's on the horizon for 2026? For what do people need to be watching out that are in the hiring game? Are there any big changes that you see happening? Any big rollouts you guys are working on that you can talk about? Or what's this look like next year?
Yeah, so we're constantly working in the hiring space. We're finding ways to make it faster, easier, more personalized. So anytime there's a new tool out there, we're on the front end of doing that. I think for the business owner, it's just, if you haven't looked in the last 90 days what's available, you're out of date. Things are moving so incredibly. I actually went to a conference the other day and I saw somebody mentioned a tool and I was like, oh yeah, I tried it. I hate it. They were like, oh yeah, but it got really good last month. And I looked at it again and it wasn't incrementally better. It was thousands of times better. The pace of change is just really dynamic right now. So I think business owners ought to be aware of that. Like if you were thinking you had a year to do things, I would probably shorten that to a quarter. And then also to realize that because of that, there's been a dramatic shift, I believe, in what companies are people going to trust their future with. So people are going to have a lot of choices and of where they want to work. And so we have to make sure that as business owners, we're an attractive place to be and that we're building something beyond just our own dream. When people come work for us, you know, our what we're building has to be big enough to fit all of those humans inside of it and them also get what they're looking for.
I love it, man.
That's
This has been a fantastic conversation today. For all of our listeners, if they wanted to connect with you, learn more about what you're doing, where's the best places for them to do that?
I would say the best place is just to go to WhoHire.com and they can find me there. You can put my email in the show notes if you want. It's Jon, Jon at WhoHire.com. And I get back to every single person that messages me.
Awesome, man. Well, Jonathan, thank you for taking the time and being on the show today.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. All right, construction champions, another episode in the bag. You know, I think Jonathan was really just nailing it there at the end with if you haven't looked in the last 90 days, you need to go look. And I would open this up to not just the hiring processes. Like things are moving fast. Like he brought up the tool that in the last 30 days had become hundreds of thousands of times better than it was before. You might think because you got something at the beginning of 2025 that you're dealing with the latest, the best technology. And if they're not upkeeping it, if they're not growing, you might find something that is a lot better. This happens all the time because we don't ever revisit stuff. We don't ever go and say, is this right? You know, as you grow a business is you get the systems in place, you get it all up and going, but it's like system. So like I've said on here before about SOPs is SOPs are not like a solid thing. Like they have fluency to them as your business grows. They just kind of become this foundation of how this is supposed to be. And it's meant to be revisited. Too often I see people write their SOPs and they're like, good, we're good for that 20 years. That couldn't be any farther from the truth. Like you just need to continue to revisit that quarterly, and maybe not even you assign the person that's in charge of that to be like, hey, every quarter or every 6 months, I want to review on exactly how we're doing this. Are we using the right tools? Is everything still how it should be? Should we be tweaking something? This is the kind of stuff that allows you to continue to grow. And right now, where technology is so rapidly advancing, you have to be revisiting this stuff because you don't know what you don't know. And if you're not looking into it, you can get left behind. So construction champions, until next time, be the champion you're meant to be.